Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Pardon Our Picks, where perfection is a work in progress. I'm your host, Sam. Alongside me, as always, my esteemed co-host, the Orange Bomber, Tarik. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you, Sam?
Doing pretty good. Joining us, as always, is Football Jesus. What's the word from above?
Word from above is Dad's kind of mad at me, but this week I'm going down swinging if I'm going down. So,
Oh, shoot. Well, can't be making Papa angry. And then, of course, we got the QB coach, Jessica. How's it going tonight?
Going really well. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a little guest star popping out here at some point, but good.
That's all right. They're adorable. We allow it. Of course, Pardon Our Picks is brought to you by Aardvark Concepts Incorporated. More than just a sign shop, and into deep of Maryland. Check out their next show at Caddy's this Friday at 9:30 p.m. It's going to be a good show. Speaking of a good show, my goodness, this past week, close games all over the place, and it's just been it's been interesting, especially with some of the injuries. Jimmy G's out, might be out. He avoided the Liz Frank, so he could possibly make it back for the playoffs.
Jimmy G?
Jimmy G.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He could make it back for the playoffs. If he's out for, they're estimating 7 or 8 weeks. 7 weeks would put him at the divisional round. So without him during the season, though, do you guys think that they can hold on to the division and or just make the playoffs?
Who is the backup QB?
Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant, that's right. And do you guys know why they're called Mr. Irrelevant?
Because he's the last pick in the draft.
Absolutely.
But he wasn't so irrelevant this week. So I definitely think that they can make the playoffs, and they will, even with Brock Purdy. Or Josh Johnson, if they did or do pick him up. They're just a well-rounded team, and the quarterback position is not as heavily weighted for them. Hence why they were able to go from Jimmy G to Trey Lance, try that out for the development purposes, and then back to Jimmy G, and then now to Brock Purdy, and still win the game. They just have so many offensive weapons that can make plays happen, and their defense is top in the NFL. So yeah, I have no doubt that they will still make the playoffs, and maybe Jimmy G will get the chance to play.
I agree with Jess. I mean, on a team like the 49ers, the quarterback seems like the least important position. As long as they have someone there who can manage the game well, which arguably Jimmy G is that type of quarterback. He's a game manager. So as long as Brock Purdy can come in and play complementary football to what Jimmy G can do, I 100% have faith in the Niners run game and that defense to propel them through the rest of the season. I mean, and the competition in their division has kind of slowed up. Seattle's look kind of bad. The Rams are the injury-plagued team of the season, and the Cardinals are, well, who knows what's going on in that building, but we'll see. But I have faith in Mr. Relevant, Brock Purdy.
Yeah. So I was just looking, you brought up the schedule, Brady, in their division anyway. So I was looking at the schedule, and the only two games I think that could give them any problem really are the Bucs and the Seahawks. And it depends, as you said, which Seahawks show up for the game. So their game Sunday is against the Bucs. So those would be the only two, and it depends on which Tom Brady shows up. Because Tom Brady barely won the game last night. So I think they can do it. I agree with you guys wholeheartedly. I think they can do it. If they can just get to that point, and that should be good for them.
This is going to be interesting because you're right. They do play the 49ers, play the Buccaneers. They have the Seahawks. The next two games, both playoff contenders right now. One's a division leader, kind of. And then you have the Commanders. The next three games against really good defenses. And with the backup QB, you're not expecting him to throw it terribly much. But he has so many weapons around him. Can those teams slow him down? slow down the weapons, knowing he's not going to throw much, yeah, they probably can slow him down.
You know, what's crazy is I think he still threw like 30 some times, 37 times.
He had no fear, and I respect the hell out of him for it.
Yeah,
So who knows what they're gonna do with him?
that's true.
He needs a
Um,
leather helmet and a cigarette in his mouth. And a
given the Seahawks and the 49ers schedules, the Seahawks could catch them, but they have some tough games coming up too. They're the only team really in the division that can catch them. They got the Panthers this week, so that's not really probably as big of an issue. The 49ers 2 weeks from now, which is going to be huge in determining who can take that division, because right now the 49ers have the victory over the Seahawks. So the Seahawks lose, they're pretty much done with the division. That's going to be the deciding game. Then you have the Chiefs, who are probably going to destroy Seahawks. But then you have two somewhat winnable games. You have the Jets and you have the Rams. And if those two teams can end up tied with the Seahawks beating the 49ers, I can see them stealing the division back. And if the 49ers, say, stumble down the stretch, go 1-4, possible. They have the Arizona Cardinals in week 17, who love to play spoilers. They could get passed by the Washington Commanders, or, as I predicted a couple weeks ago, the Detroit Lions. Detroit's doing pretty good. They're making a run. They
I
can
would
win.
say the Lions, yeah, maybe. The Commanders,
The Commanders are only a half game behind them.
it's not about that.
All they got to do is keep up and win one more game than they do.
Were you saying that they play each other, or just that they need to have a better record?
Well, they play each other. They would just need to have they would need to have a better record, because they're not going to be tied, since the Commanders now have a tie.
Ugh.
So, but it could come down to that. It could come down to the last week of the season, and if the 49ers can't take care of business against the Cardinals, they could be out of the playoffs. It absolutely could happen, simply because they lost a pretty good quarterback in Jimmy G, or game manager, whatever you want to call him. Which would be a travesty with the talent of the team, because that team is a very good team. Speaking of very good, let's see how Jessica did this week. Number one again. Look at that.
Hmm.
That's right. I'm
time for
trailing
the best
behind
record this week. Yes.
Go ahead, Tarik.
Tarik is
I'll take
creeping
any
up.
win I can get.
Brady's still in the last. Sammy won
Oh,
8 and 60.
Sammy.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't do too bad,
No.
considering he knows very little about football.
Yeah.
But given people who know very little about football, let's go into our games of the week. Football Jesus, give us that gospel.
Well, you know me. I like a good gamble. And my gamble this week is the Las Vegas Raiders against the Los Angeles Rams. And I'll tell you why I'm excited about this game is that the Rams, given the slew of injuries to their starting quarterback, the best wide receiver, top 5, maybe, I don't know. We argue that a lot on this show. And now their defensive tackle, who is all pro every year forever. They came out and they played a really competitive game last week against a potential playoff team, the Seattle Seahawks, who Seattle, again, is one of those teams that we don't really know who they are this year. And the Raiders have seemed to find that magic formula that we talked about earlier this season about giving Devontae Adams 10 to 15 targets a game and then running the ball effectively with Josh Jacobs. So I see this as being a highly competitive game. One team with a potential playoff berth, and the Raiders and the Rams were kind of really just playing for pride this week. But the one thing that sticks out to me is that the Rams were the only team to make a waiver claim to get Baker Mayfield this week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the potential with it being currently Tuesday and then playing on Thursday night, I do not see Baker Mayfield actually seeing the field this week. But I think that's a really good pickup for this team going down the stretch and playing spoiler. So with that, I am picking the Los Angeles Rams, one, because I need to pick some games that I don't think anyone else is going to pick. And two, I was really surprised at how well their quarterback, whose name slips my mind, played last week, given the, I'm just going to say, a below average caliber of talent that surrounded him. The Raiders have looked really good offensively the last couple of weeks, but defensively they have been let down. So I think if it comes down to it, I think the Rams are going to put up just a few more points this week. So I have the Rams by a field goal in this one.
That would be Wolford, by the way.
Yes, that guy who's totally going to be in the league next year.
Well, I mean, I definitely disagree. I know you're grabbing at straws right now, but the Rams, I mean, we all kind of assumed they would have some sort of a slump, but didn't expect them to go like 3-9.
Yeah, they're 3-9.
I do think that they will have a better week this week than they have been having, but I definitely don't think that they are going to be the ones to spoil this little win streak for Vegas. Vegas has found a good formula. Josh Jacobs is doing fantastic, and the defense is banged up just like the offense for the Rams. And then, I mean, the Rams' go-to really was Cooper Kupp. Obviously, he's not playing. I think the offense is going to be stalled a little bit for the Rams, and the Raiders are going to come out with the win by at least 6. Thursday night football, too.
So I have a pick, and with current revelations of my co-hosts, I feel very nervous about who I picked because I agree with Brady.
Yeah, you should be nervous.
Somebody's brown nose and trying to get upstairs.
I have a message to Sam from like 2 hours ago who I picked, so I had no idea. But I didn't know about the Baker Mayfield thing. I knew that he got I knew he got let go. I didn't know the Rams were trying to get him or got him. But luckily he's not playing this week, because if they did, then I would change my pick immediately on air. I do not have the faith in Baker Mayfield that Brady apparently does. But I think with the Raiders just banged up and everything else, as Jess said, Rams have a worse record, and they haven't looked good from their Super Bowl run last year. So this is a big drop off. But I think with just everything going on, and we talk every week about the Raiders, whenever we bring them up about their problems with the front office and everything else going on over there. But I think the Rams are just going to squeak this by.
Well, I agree with Jess. It's this team, the Raiders. Yeah, they're on a 3-game winning streak. The Raiders right now are money. Because they're Las Vegas. I know it was a terrible dad joke. Anyway, it's still going to be Wofford this week for the Rams. It's looked horrible for them all year. The defense hasn't played good. The offense has been putrid. I think they're pretty much packing it in at this point. I don't think that they're playing for anything. The Raiders, however, are 2 games out of a playoff spot. And this is a team that really wants to get back to where they should have been at the beginning of the season. They should have been playing well at the beginning of the season. You pick up Devontae Adams. You guys can play good offense. And yet they've been unable to win games until recently. So that being said, I have the Raiders in this one. I don't. I think it'll be close because, well, the Raiders are another one of those teams that just don't blow anybody out. So let's get on to the next game of the week. We have our QB coach,
AKA the leader of the pack. My game is the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Miami Dolphins. So, man, we all had like really high hopes for the LA Chargers, and then we were all super surprised when the Chargers didn't do as well as we all thought, but the Miami Dolphins did better than we all thought. So it's kind of a cool matchup. Somewhat similar records. Miami is coming off of a loss to, oh man, who did they play? Help me out here.
Looking back, hold on.
The
It was a big
49ers.
49ers. I was
49ers.
like, it was a big game. I know this game. But one of the key things about Miami, which has been apparent as of late, they do struggle with running the ball, which is lucky for them. They are one of the lowest rushing offenses. Lucky for them, the LA Chargers are the worst rushing defense, or one of them, I believe. But the Chargers are starting to get a little bit of momentum going. They did struggle last week, but I definitely am. They're also having some front office issues. A lot of people are calling for their head coach to be not only fired, but replaced with Sean Payton, of all people. Especially being that he's supposedly this defensive mind, but they can't stop the run to save their lives. But I will say, I think at the end of the day, the Chargers are going to take this one. I believe that's who I picked. Sam, help me out here.
I believe. Hang on. I have it here, just right here. Oh, there it is. I got it.
No, I'm not sure if I picked the Chargers.
You did not
I did not. Okay. I picked Dolphins.
pick the Dolphins.
Okay.
No, you picked the third team.
Yeah, the 13. Well,
You
I'm
picked
trying
it
to
as a
think like
tie.
the Dolphins
The
against
Barracuda. She picked the Barracuda.
the Dolphins against 49ers. I don't think it was as ugly as I thought it was gonna be. Let's see. I can't believe that Washington game ended in a tie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 17-33 for Miami. So then I guess maybe they have a little bounce back. But the thing is their offensive weapons, like that duo is insane. And I mean, they don't really need to run the ball a whole lot. They have Waddle, and hopefully he gets more points this week for me. Not that it matters. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Dolphins, I guess, for the win by 7. Is it in Miami?
It's,
In LA.
it's in LA.
LA. All right.
And she's absolutely right. The Chargers are almost fourth worst against the run.
So I agree with a lot of what Jess said, but the one thing that really concerns me about Miami this week is not only their offensive line, but Tua sustained an ankle injury against the 49ers last week. So his escapability and the 49ers' arguable strength of that defense is their pass rush with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So I expect them to be a blitz-heavy defense this week. And while Miami may put up decent yardage, I think it's going to be enough to prevent them from scoring a ton of points. And while the Chargers really don't have a run game, they have a really good short passing game. And I think they're going to utilize that to really nullify the corners of Miami and really kind of open up some of those throwing lanes to guys like Gerald Everett, their tight end, and Austin Eckler, their running back. So I have this being a very close game, honestly. I mean, Miami kind of slipped last week, only put up 17 points, but up against a really good defense. So I have this game being in the high 20s for both, but I have the Chargers eking this one out.
All right, so I'm going with the Dolphins on this one. I agree with a lot of what both of you guys said. I mean, you covered pretty much all the points. I didn't know Tua was hurt. I don't think it changes a whole lot. I think it just makes it a little closer. The game last week is what it is. Big game. You never know how those are going to turn out. And both quarterbacks got hurt apparently. So, but yeah, just with everything going on, I think Miami's just got a few more weapons. I like the duo that Jess mentioned. And as she also said, like Chargers just have just disappointed. They weren't what we expected. As we already discussed, either on and off recording, like this year's just full of just weirdness that you can't predict and hard to say what's going on week to week. So, but again, I'm going with Miami.
I also will say, with Tua being hurt, obviously the recipe this week against the 49ers was rushing Tua. He definitely got frazzled and was not making as good of plays, wasn't hitting his guys. So obviously that's what the Chargers are going to try to do, like Brady mentioned. But I think that they're going to have a better game plan for it.
I picked Miami last week. I did not pick the Chargers last week. I was a little disappointed in Miami. I figured they could have won that game, especially after Jimmy G went down. They finally got a touch. They finally scored a touchdown against a team that hadn't had a second half touchdown scored against them. But that was all they did. They really didn't do much else. Tua ankle bothering him. I think he's going to play this week. I think he'll be less mobile, but he doesn't need to be as mobile. He's been throwing the ball pretty decent. The Chargers defense, they're like Jessica said, fourth worst against the run. They got a pretty good running back, Jeff Wilson, and Raheem Mostert. So they got a good, nice two-headed monster there. Cam Akers he hasn't put up a lot of yards. No, not Akers.
Akers on the Rams.
Gee, I keep
No,
getting
but you are right though. They are at like one of the worst running
yeah.
yards per carry teams in the NFL right now too.
I'm
So
getting my LA teams wrong. Hang on. Okay. Anyway, so given all that, I mean, I think Miami's going to pull this one out. I just don't see them losing twice in a row, especially to a team that's just barely hanging on to a playoff hope right now. They are, and Miami's still playing for that division, man. They're one game out of it. Buffalo slips up once, and Miami could slip right back in there. So I got Miami for the victory this week. All right, let's get on to the next game of the week. Tarik.
All right, so this is kind of a conglomerate of different methods I've used to pick games this week. I've got the Ravens and the Steelers. I think this is interesting. This is a divisional game. We here in Maryland know how big this gets and how heated we get between these teams. Didn't expect where these two teams are. I mean, the Ravens do have a really good record as shown there, but they've barely won these games. I mean, the game Sunday, they won at the very last second. Steelers coming off a 2-game loss, and I looked up so they got Kenny Pickett, who's had 8 interceptions for 4 touchdowns in 8 games. So it's not doing very well. Meanwhile, Ravens, I think they've ruled out Lamar for Sunday, so he's not going to play. So at least 3 games. So they got Tyler Huntley, who did, I think, really well given. He went one throw in the middle of a down, and he actually made the throw running off his back foot, and so he did really well. I think this is going to be close. I got Ravens coming away with this one, but with just everything going on, the way Ravens play down to the level of whoever they're playing, I think it's going to be heated, and this is going to be, I think, a dirty one. But it's going to be close, but I'm going with Baltimore.
It's going to be dirty.
yeah, I struggle with this one. I don't know. I think I went with Baltimore, but I'm really not super confident in my pick on this one. It very well could change. I agree. Huntley is a great backup, especially for this offense. He fits into this offense really well. He's mobile, and he made some pretty good decisions. The last drive of that game, he was patient. He waited for the right opportunity, not the easiest one, and it ended up in a touchdown. The Ravens have struggled so much offensively lately, and now the defense is starting to taper off as well. 3 of their 4 losses were by 4 points or less. So that's what really makes me wonder, are they going to make this a game or not? Because they are progressively getting worse. I think Huntley will be well prepared for this game. We know what we're getting into with Pittsburgh Steelers as Ravens fans and players. I also found it pretty funny that Tyler Huntley, who came in midway through the game almost, or partway through the game,
very early.
Either way, he had similar numbers to Russell Wilson, and his rushing numbers were similar to the running back on Denver. It was kind of crazy, and he's the quarterback, the backup quarterback. But so, TJ Watt's obviously a concern. But I think ultimately the Ravens are going to take this by less than a touchdown, maybe even a last-minute field goal or last few seconds field goal, but not super confident.
To be fair, Houseplant has the same numbers as Russell Wilson right now.
Well, I mean, also the running backs numbers though. That was the thing. He lined up with their running back, one of their running backs, and Russell Wilson, and that it was just crazy. He's the quarterback.
Well, on the Russell Wilson thing, because we won't talk about the Broncos this broadcast, I don't think he is still 4 touchdowns short of matching the total number of bathrooms that are in his house. As of this game of the week, I'm with my co-host here. I'm not super confident in either team. The Ravens offense, yeah, Huntley made some really good decisions, but again, the coaching of the offense made some really poor ones, like that double flicker Hail Mary from our number 6 wide receiver on the depth chart into quadruple coverage. Terrible idea. And the Ravens really had an inability to run the football against a pretty good defense in the Broncos last week. And as Jess alluded to, the Steelers have TJ Watt, and they have played surprisingly well when he starts. And they have figured out a way to use Najee Harris in the passing game, and he's not being Trent Richardson 2.0. So as of right now, as much as it pains me to say, I am picking the Pittsburgh Steelers because Tyler Huntley, I think he is a great backup. I do not think he is a starting quarterback in this league. His numbers are very middle of the road-esque, and if the Ravens aren't able to run the ball effectively, I don't think the Ravens can win on Huntley's shoulders. I am potentially changing my pick, waiting for a few injury reports to come out, like to Patrick Queen, to see if he's able to play this week through that bone bruise that he suffered. So we'll see, but as of right now, I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers on the sole fact that it's in Heinz Stadium, and that place is always dangerous.
These two teams, neither of them played a very good game last week. It was rough. And the reason the Steelers came away with their victory is because Atlanta just couldn't put it together either. The reason the Baltimore Ravens won last week is because of defensive pass interference towards the end of the game. It was rough to watch. But you have an interesting dynamic with the Ravens this week, I think, and possibly for the next couple of weeks. One, Tyler Huntley, this is the end of his contract right here. He's coming up on it. So he's looking to impress people who may pay him to play for their team.
Like Denver.
Like Denver. No, he's not old enough for that.
He's not the end of his career yet.
Yeah. as far as we know. And his offensive coordinator has not shown that he can get his team to score very consistently throughout the season. I think both of them are playing for, which I think by the way, I think if the Ravens do horribly this week, I think Roman is gone.
Good.
Really,
God, I hope
really
so.
do.
Hope so.
If they lose to the Steelers and they only score like 15, 14 points, something like that, I think he's gone. Given that the Steelers are really bad, I mean, you look at some of the numbers. Najee Harris doesn't even have 700 yards rushing this season. Doesn't have more than 148 receiving yards this season. So combined over 12 games, he doesn't have over 900 yards total. And Kenny Pickett has been terrible. He's just been bad. He's been sacked 23 times in the 9 games that he's actually been in. It's been a rough year for the Steelers. It's been a rough year, kind of, for the Ravens, just watching them. But I have Baltimore winning this one simply because it's Baltimore versus Steelers. And really, either one of these teams could come out of it, even with a backup QB, even with the good QBs. It doesn't matter. But I got Baltimore winning it because I think that they finally play it a little more up to their potential.
Also, at what point do we blame the offensive struggles on you being at the game? Because that's 2 games you've gone to, and the offense has looked terrible.
But they won both games.
Damn it.
By the way, Brady, the game's not at Heinz Field.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's at a Chrysler Stadium.
That's not a thing. No, sorry. It's still Heinz Field. That's not a real word that you just said. That was a
It was and shall always be Three River Stadium.
Yeah, it's like saying, oh no, they changed the name of Cowboy Stadium to, Buckeyes Ranch Dressing Stadium,
They did change the name of Cowboy Stadium to AT&T Stadium.
but it's Cowboy Stadium. It's Heinz Field. I don't care what brand, logo, corporation buys the rights. It's always going to be Heinz Field.
It's always going to be Heinz Field, which is a corporation.
Exactly, but
I'm
it's Heinz
hungry.
Field.
Wouldn't the Ravens Stadium all first?
It was all net or something like that. Yeah,
All state, all first. It was whatever
Yeah.
bank M&T bought.
Yeah. They didn't know they ain't around no more. All right, let's jump into my game of the week and let's see who we got. We have the Vikings, who could clinch this week going against the Lions, and I think this is a very interesting game. The Lions kind of need this victory. The Vikings, they're playing for number 1 seed. They're still a game behind. Technically, they're 2 games behind Philly because they lost to Philly. So they would need to beat them by a game. But they're pretty much wrapping up the division already. And with a win here, the Vikings win the division. With a loss, they stave it off for 1 more week. The Lions have been up and down. Their defense has started to pick it up a little bit, but you look at some of the competition they played against. The Jaguars, not a great team. So that defense last week could have been a smokescreen. But their offense has been lights out. And it's weird because at the beginning of the season, they were putting up good points. They were lights out. And then the lights went out and they had no offense for a little while. The Vikings, however, do not blow anybody out. Every single one of their games is close. I think 1 game was more than a touchdown difference. This is going to be close. This is going to be a really good game. I have the Vikings winning it, but I think it's going to come down to the last possession. I think the Lions are just barely going to miss out on winning this one.
I gotta disagree with Sam. I'm going with the Lions on this one, and solely for the fact on the Vikings defense. I mean, we all talked about the Vikings against the Jets last week as being a very exciting game, and it turned out to be exactly that, with the Jets missing the win on a drop touchdown that hit the receiver in the chest in the end zone. So, as Sam said, the Vikings don't blow anybody out, no matter how many weapons that they have on the field. And as Sam said, the Lions offense has been scoring effectively and on any which way you throw it, to their rookie tight ends, to their wide receivers, and with their 2 running backs. I mean, Jamal Williams has more total touchdowns than I think the Denver Broncos have this year. So I had to bring it up. Sorry, Tarik.
That's all good.
So this is one of my, Jess is going to call me grasping at straws, shooting for the moon, praying to dad, whatever. But I legitimately think, because currently, if you look at the betting lines, the Lions are favorites in this game. And I think they're starting to see that, sure, the Vikings offense is impressive and flashy, but that defense is just missing some pieces that really prevent them from running away with games. Go Lions.
So I definitely don't think that you're grasping at straws in this one. I am going to stay with the safer pick, in my opinion, which I think is the Minnesota Vikings, because all around, I think that they are stronger in most of their athletic areas, offense, defense, in the air, on the ground. But the Lions are finally healthy. A lot of their offensive weapons are back. They have the ground game, they have the aerial game, and they're averaging quite a few points. It's like 26 point some points per game. Minnesota's starting to struggle giving up points, and watching the Lions play the Bills, and probably should have won that game Thanksgiving, losing by 3 points. I definitely have a lot more confidence in the Lions than I did, for sure. I mean, they just knew how to lose games before. I'm still going to go with Minnesota. Justin Jefferson being one of the top wide receivers in the game, on par for an 1,800-yard season. Okay, that's insane. And I think he's got a good quarterback throwing to him. I think that he can beat his coverage and run these routes, and nobody can touch him. They're probably going to try to double up on him, but I do have Minnesota. It's going to be a very close game. Say less than 3 points. Definitely final possession stuff.
By the way, Vegas has this as more of a pick 'em, more so. The only reason that the Lions have the points is because
It's
they're
at
the home team.
Home field.
Yeah, it's a 2.5. It's Lions 2.5, so it's really a pick 'em.
I hope they
and-
open the dome and really just let in the elements and go to town, Detroit style.
I mean, Minnesota's not far off of that style, right?
I
But
was just saying, like, it
Just
doesn't.
surprise them though. Just don't say anything and just open the dome as the teams are taking the field.
it's just tough to, like, with Detroit's secondary not being great and Minnesota having such an aerial attack. It's hard to take the Lions here for me, but it's toss up a little bit.
So, I like a lot of the points that Brady made. I agree with everything he said except the result. So I'm going with
Typical this year.
Minnesota. Huh?
Typical of this year, but I mean, you've been right more than I have. So
Exactly.
But I'm of the mindset that a good offense can beat a good defense or whatever. So some of my favorite years with teams have been like just an explosive offense and defense can do squat. Just it's more visually appealing to me, and I feel like it accomplishes a little bit more. So I agree with Brady and Jess. Just with Jess's answer, I'm picking the Vikings. I agree with Kirk Cousins and that aerial attack I think is just gonna be able to just dominate that. I think they're gonna get out in front and stay in front, but it's not gonna be like by a large margin. It's gonna be very slim.
another interesting point to this game is TJ Hawkinson was traded from the Lions to Minnesota, and we always see players who go against their former teams do very well. So I could see him being a feature in this game.
Yep. And it's not just the run, it's not just the passing defense that's a problem for Detroit. It's their defense all around, obviously. That's why they lose so many games. So the run game is going to be rough too.
Yeah,
Could be a
It's gonna be a
shootout.
fun
Who knows?
game. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun game.
I like how Tarik agreed with the two of you and just ignored me. I'm just sitting here. doing
Well,
my own
it
thing,
was just the points that they made, not that I was.
twiddling my thumbs. He doesn't agree with my points.
No, none of your points, Sam.
I think he just
I
wants my
award no
job.
points. And may Dad have mercy on your soul. Whatever that quote from Billy Madison is.
We're all dumber for listening.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So, top panel pick'ems. I added a player to the list.
Okay, yeah, my eyes were like, what am I looking at?
Yeah. I was like, I definitely didn't pick the Raiders.
Sammy has made his picks and will be making his picks for the rest of the year.
That's cool.
I thought it was adorable, him wanting to make picks last week, so I figured, why not throw him in there? And if I ever get picks from any of the other kids, I'll throw those on a separate panel just to see where the kids picked.
Yeah, I got
Always
their
Kings.
picks for the one game, but I can get them. I can try and get them for the rest of them.
No, that's fine. That's fine. If you could get Emmett to sit down long enough to pick them.
Yeah.
Of course,
We're gonna
Brady agrees with Sammy that the Jets will win.
Hey, I got to, if I'm going to make up any ground, I got to start grasping at straws and going away from my gut. And the Jets looked really good last week against the Minnesota Vikings, so I think match up really well with the Bills. I think they're both very complementary teams in what they do. So maybe the Jets fix their mistakes from last week.
They could. They absolutely could. Mike White could win the game against Buffalo, but we'll see. And of course, Jessica and I picked the Raiders over the Rams for obvious reasons.
Yeah, because we're right.
That's fine.
Gives me and Brady a chance to climb up a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, Brady is the only one to pick the Lions along with Sammy.
Hey, you got a smart kid there, Sam. You got a smart kid.
And he is the only one to pick the Steelers.
Well, a lion will eat a Viking.
True. An unarmored Viking would totally get eaten by a lion.
No, Norman Viking.
And Steelers pick subject to change barring injuries.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised at this, seeing two of you pick Tampa Bay after the way Tampa Bay's offense looked last night.
I picked it because of their defense. I think they're going to hold San Francisco to low score this week.
I can't wait to gain that game on you, Sam.
I picked it just because Jimmy G's out and Tom Brady manages to just pick it up somehow, as much as I dislike him. So.
Yeah. And then, of course, Brady and Sammy picking the Chargers. Brady picking New England, which that one was a surprise for me.
No, honestly, I don't think it should be that much of a surprise because New England's defense has been pretty good.
Oh, no,
It's
no.
their offense that hasn't done well. So
the surprise was that only one person picked New England.
One
person was
it was a toss-up for me, but it was
I'm surprised no one is giving me crap about the Carolina Panthers on the last slide.
Yeah.
I thought that was implied.
Oh, no, I was just going to say because Seattle has like one healthy running back on the roster now. So, and the Carolina defense is pretty good. So,
I mean, the New England thing, it's not unbelievable. But I was a little shocked because I feel like you usually kind of favor Arizona.
I do, but they haven't really been able to perform well, like as a team. It's always been one facet. Like the passing game's really good and the running game's bad, or the running game's good and the passing game's bad. And honestly, I think New England's playing for more, and it's Bill Belichick. I mean, when it comes down to it, he's probably the greatest head coach of all time, and I don't think he's going to go out on it like with a losing record this year. And I think this is an easy game for them to win.
I'm not gonna lie, I picked this one as an upset. That's the reason why I picked it.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my co-host for being here, BSing with us for this this week and every week. Please click like, click subscribe so you know when our videos are. Leave a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win, whether we're right or wrong, how professional we really are, as it is a work in progress.
And how many games back am I going to be after this week?
All of them. Even the ones you picked right are going to be wrong. So, as always, I'm Tarik.
I'm Jessica.
I'm Football Jesus.
And I'm Sam. And you have a great football week.
Bye, guys.